David Menzies for Rebel News here in West End, Toronto. And folks, I'm standing outside the Sa-Dam Food Bank. And this was the site just moments ago for a Pierre Poilievre press conference entitled Fix the Broken Budget. And speaking of fixing things, Mr. Poilievre was quick to note that this food bank back in 2020 was serving 10,000 regular recipients of food. Today in 2025, that number has ballooned to 70,000 persons requiring food just to get by. Unbelievable. Oh, and get this, 2020, if that year rings a bell, that's when Mark Carney became Justin Trudeau's financial advisor. Gee, how's that working out for us? In any event, I got to ask Mr. Poilievre a question. Mine was in regards to his promise to deport foreign nationals who are chanting for genocide in the streets of our great Dominion. Here's my question, and here's what Mr. Poilievre had to say.
Good morning, Mr. Poilievre. David Menzies with Rebel News. Mr. Poilievre, you recently said that any foreign nationals who are convicted of anti-Semitic crimes in Canada should be deported. But that is a very high bar. There have been very few arrests and very few prosecutions over the past 16 months. Indeed, according to police and prosecutors, the anti-Semitic encampments at universities were not crimes. Shouting for a new intifada and promoting genocide are not considered criminal. Question, would you be open to reviving Stephen Harper's ban on the glorification of terrorism?
Thank you. We're going to be releasing our election platform once the writ is dropped and the election is called, so you'll have to wait until then for those sorts of final decisions and commitments. But what I've made clear is that we have to reverse the hate and division that has been unleashed in this country over the last 10 years. The radical woke agenda that Justin Trudeau instituted and that Mark Carney has said explicitly he wants to continue has divided our people. He's broken people up into different ethnic, religious, cultural groups and turned them against each other. Liberals have deliberately divided community against community for electoral gain. And they have put in place an ideology that obsesses about every single possible ethnocultural division. And what is the result? A 251% increase in violent hate crime under this last decade of the Trudeau-Carney Liberals. So I will end that radical woke ideology. I will treat every single Canadian equally. We will cut off the funds that have gone to anti-Semitic groups and to other hate mongers. We will pass tough new laws that punish people who vandalize or attack places of worship. We will deport foreign nationals who are in this country that engage in violence or law-breaking of any kind, including anti-Semitic violence. And we will ban every single terrorist group that's operating here. We'll find and deport all of the IRGC thugs. There are apparently 700 IRGC thugs who are in Canada today, operating with impunity, who are not citizens. They're spending the stolen money that they took from the Iranian people while they instigate divisions on our grounds in this country. They will be kicked out of this country. We're going to put our country first. And finally, our approach is going to be that we are all Canadians. Every Canadian will be Canadian first. We can come from anywhere in the world. You can have any religious background you want. At the end of the day, we need a common identity with a common loyalty that puts that flag above everything else.
Well, one thing's for sure, it is certainly better than issuing some 5,000 visas to Gazans, and some of those Gazans, I understand, are now suing Canada given the delay in facilitating their arrival here. Unbelievable. The other interesting element of this press conference, folks, was the fact that 5 journalists, myself included, were allowed to ask Mr. Poilievre a question, but get a load of this. 4 out of the 5 journalists who got to ask Mr. Poilievre questions were with independent media organizations. And I can tell you, Global and CTV and CBC, they were here and they were not happy about this. In fact, after the press conference, I was able to speak to a CTV employee and a Global reporter. Check out how that went.
I'm just hoping that everyone would get to ask a question like it normally is, right? Like everyone gets 1 + 1. We showed up here hoping to ask them a question. I had questions about Ukraine. I think a lot of Canadians want to know that answer. That's answers on that, but we didn't get our question in. So,
you know, Nathaniel, Ukraine is certainly on the front burner again, given the negotiations that are going on. My question, though, is that in the past decade, the Justin Trudeau Liberals have completely avoided entertaining questions from independent media. In fact, a year ago, I was actually arrested for simply scrumming Deputy Prime Minister Chrystia Freeland. I'm just curious. I'm pretty much a free speech absolutist. I would like to see all questions entertained, but why has it always been that the mainstream media would never go to bat for independent outlets?
well, I can't comment on that. I certainly would have called him out if he didn't give a question for you. I'm obviously not an executive, but I guess on that aspect I agree with you. I think all